The child who became the comfort. You were too young to understand why your mother's tears needed your silence, why her sighs became your signal to shrink, to listen, to soothe. You thought love meant being useful, that your calm could stop her storms, and in a way, it worked. The room quieted when you smiled, when you said, "It's okay, Mom." But something inside you began to disappear, piece by piece, every time you held space you never received. Later, you'd call it empathy, but it was survival. You learned that safety wasn't in being cared for, but in caring, that being the listener kept the peace, that being the strong one kept you close. It felt like love, the secret, sacred bond between mother and child. But underneath, it was an invisible trade, your emotional childhood for her stability. You didn't know you were her anchor. You didn't know a parent could lean that heavily on a child. You just knew that when she was sad, you couldn't rest. That when she smiled again, you could finally breathe. Love felt like responsibility, and rest felt like betrayal. If you look back now, you'll see the quiet tragedy, how the roles reversed without a sound, how you became the emotional adult before your body even grew. And no one ever came to tell you that wasn't your job. You were meant to be held, not to hold. It wasn't your fault. You did what love taught you. But love, when confused with need, turns children into caretakers, and caretakers grow up believing that peace must always be earned. You were never supposed to be her comfort. You were supposed to be her child. No one likes that word, incest. But emotional incest isn't about touch. It's about access. It's when a parent opens their inner world too wide, inviting a child into places meant for another adult, their fears, their loneliness, their pain. You entered that room too early. She told you things you couldn't process. Her heartbreaks, her betrayals, her doubts about your father or her life. And you listened, wide-eyed, because she said you were so mature. You thought it was praise. It was actually displacement. She turned you into her confidant because she had no one else. And so you carried her secrets, heavy and wordless. You knew more than any child should, and that knowledge robbed you of something soft inside. You became hypervigilant, emotionally fluent, endlessly available. But deep down, you felt a guilt you couldn't name, a guilt for existing as her stability. It's hard to heal this kind of wound because it hides inside what looks like love. She didn't hit you. She talked to you. She trusted you. And that's what makes the betrayal confusing, because the abuse wasn't in the act, but in the inversion. You were given intimacy in exchange for innocence. You deserved boundaries. You deserved to be protected from her pain, not turned into its container. When a child becomes the parent's emotional partner, love becomes labor, and closeness becomes captivity. And someday, you learn to fear love because it always costs you something. Everyone called you so wise for your age. They didn't see the price behind that wisdom. Maturity was your armor, your disguise for safety. You smiled when you wanted to cry. You comforted when you needed comfort. And soon, you forgot the difference between being calm and being numb. Adults praised your strength because it made their world easier. No tantrums, no chaos, just the child who understood too much. But understanding too much is a form of loneliness. You became fluent in the moods of others, yet foreign to your own emotions. Maturity became your survival strategy, because if you stayed good, they stayed stable. If you were reliable, they wouldn't leave. It wasn't a choice. It was an agreement, written in fear. and it followed you into every relationship you'd ever have. You learned to love by anticipating needs, not expressing them. You learned that being needed meant being loved. But being needed isn't the same as being known. It's a performance, one that keeps your true self hidden backstage. And that hidden self has been waiting a long time to come home. It's okay to be tired of being strong. It's okay to outgrow your armor. The mature child was never maturity. It was a survival role. You don't need to perform love anymore. You're allowed to be held now.
You didn't fall in love the way others did. You entered relationships like assignments to fix, to heal, to prove your worth. You called it connection, but it was caretaking in disguise. The pattern was familiar. Their pain activated your purpose. You felt valuable only when someone needed you. That's what happens when love is learned through service. Your nervous system associates affection with responsibility. Peace feels empty. Calm feels suspicious. You confuse stability with distance because chaos was how love spoke to you. And so you chase intensity because that's what your body calls home. You overfunction. You explain. You soothe. You apologize. You love like you're running out of time, as if someone might leave the moment you stop being useful. And every time they say, "You're amazing, you hold me together," something inside you feels both proud and trapped. This isn't love. It's emotional labor disguised as intimacy. And the tragedy is you're so good at it that no one notices you're exhausted. You became the healer, but no one taught you how to rest. You became the safe place, but no one ever offered you safety. Love was supposed to hold you too. It wasn't your job to make anyone okay. It wasn't your duty to be enough for everyone else. The job was never yours. It was inherited through survival. And you're allowed to resign now. Love doesn't need your labor to exist. You feel everything, even what's not yours. You sense when someone's angry before they speak. You soften your tone, adjust your words, fill the silence. You became a mirror to the world, reflecting everyone's emotion but your own. It began as protection. If you could predict her moods, you could prevent the storm. So you learned to scan faces, voices, energy. It was your secret language, empathy as self-defense. But in adulthood, it feels like drowning in other people's emotions. You confuse empathy with responsibility. You think feeling someone's pain means fixing it. You think sensing discomfort means you caused it. This is the residue of emotional parentification, a body wired to anticipate danger through feelings. And yet there's nothing wrong with your sensitivity. It's not weakness. It's the scar of surviving without boundaries. When you learn to separate awareness from obligation, empathy becomes power instead of burden. You stop rescuing and start witnessing. Your feelings are not everyone's homework. You can let others carry their own storms. It's not cruelty, it's clarity. You were the emotional adult as a child. You don't have to be the emotional parent to the world. Rest feels like guilt, doesn't it? Like you're doing something wrong by doing nothing. Stillness makes your chest tighten, the silence too loud, too unfamiliar. Because as a child, rest meant vulnerability. Rest meant someone could fall apart while you weren't looking. So you learn to stay alert, to stay helpful, to always be the one who holds it together. So now relaxation feels unsafe. Your body confuses it with danger. Your mind whispers, you should be doing more. But that voice isn't truth. It's trauma echoing through routine. Rest isn't laziness, it's reparenting. Every time you allow yourself to pause, you teach your body a new language. You're safe now. You prove that nothing collapses when you breathe, that you're no longer the caretaker of everyone's world. This is what healing looks like, not grand breakthroughs, but quiet defiance, closing your eyes without guilt, letting the dishes wait, letting your heart catch up to your body. You're not lazy for needing rest. You're recovering from a lifetime of emotional labor, and the child inside you deserves to exhale without scanning the room for danger first, because peace isn't the absence of movement, it's the return of safety.
You want to say no, but your body trembles. You imagine the disappointment in their face, the silence, the distance. So you say yes again, swallowing the truth like medicine. You think you're keeping the peace, but really you're abandoning yourself. Every yes that hurts is a quiet goodbye to your own needs. That's the paradox of the parentified child. Boundaries feel like cruelty because love was always measured by sacrifice. You learned that closeness meant compliance and that disappointing someone meant danger. So now saying no feels like ending love itself. But boundaries are not rejection, they're repair. They restore the separation that was stolen from you as a child. They remind your nervous system that you're not responsible for anyone's emotional temperature. Every no you whisper is a reclamation of space, the space you never had to just exist, unneeded, untested. It's normal to feel guilt at first. That guilt isn't proof you're doing harm, it's proof you're healing, because your body was trained to equate self-care with punishment. Let the guilt pass through. Let the world adjust to your truth. You're not cruel for having limits. You're becoming real. You can love people and still protect your peace. You can care deeply without caretaking. That's not betrayal. That's balance. And it's how you teach your inner child that love doesn't have to hurt. Boundaries are how you finally become the parent you needed. There's a certain heaviness you carry. The guilt of leaving, of resting, of feeling good when others don't. It whispers, you owe them. But guilt can lie, especially when it's inherited. You were trained to confuse freedom with selfishness. As a child, your happiness was conditional. You could smile, but not too loud, dream, but not too far, because someone's sadness always took priority. So you learned to dim your joy, to shrink your desires, to never take up emotional space that wasn't earned. That guilt isn't moral, it's neurological. It's what happens when a nervous system is wired for emotional debt. Your brain still thinks love must be repaid, that peace must be justified. But you don't owe anyone your exhaustion. You can release what isn't yours. The guilt, the weight, the impossible duty to make everyone okay. You can let it fall, not because you don't care, but because caring costs you too much already. Healing isn't about becoming less kind. It's about becoming less consumed. Every time you feel guilty for feeling good, pause. Ask yourself, whose voice is this? And you'll notice it's not yours. It's the echo of a parent who couldn't hold their own pain. You're allowed to return that echo to silence. You've been called cold, distant, detached, but no one sees the tenderness inside that distance. It's not avoidance, it's protection. You built space where love once burned too hot. You built walls where boundaries were never allowed. This is what emotional neglect teaches. That closeness equals obligation, that intimacy demands sacrifice. So now when someone gets too near, your body stiffens. You retreat not because you don't care, but because you're afraid of being absorbed again. Detachment was once your oxygen. It's how you survived being everyone's emotional anchor. When you were too tired to feel, you learned to float above everything, to smile without connection, to care without collapse. And people mistook that calm for indifference. But underneath that distance is longing. A longing to be met, not needed, to be understood without performance, to love without disappearing. You don't have to destroy your walls, just open small windows. Healing doesn't demand exposure, it invites pacing. You are not broken for needing space. Your boundaries are not evidence of coldness, they're evidence of history. You can be both tender and guarded, both open and cautious, because healing isn't about choosing between connection and protection. It's learning that both can exist in the same heart. People tell you to forgive, as if forgiveness were a doorway to freedom, a clean break, a new light. But forgiveness isn't erasure. It's not pretending it didn't happen. It's choosing to stop carrying what was never yours to hold. It's remembering without reliving. You don't have to rush it. Forgiveness, when forced, becomes another performance, another way to make others comfortable with your pain. Real forgiveness is quiet and private. It happens the day you stop seeking an apology that will never come. You may never hear her say, "I'm sorry for making you my mirror." You may never see her take accountability for the childhood she borrowed from you. That doesn't mean your healing is incomplete. It means you stopped waiting for her to understand. You're freeing yourself from the need for validation. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconnection. It can live peacefully alongside distance. It's not about excusing her. It's about releasing your own nervous system. The goal isn't reconciliation, it's regulation. You deserve calm, even if the past remains unresolved. So when they say, forgive and forget, smile softly. You can forgive without forgetting. Because forgetting erases you, and you've been erased enough. Real forgiveness keeps the memory, but removes the weight. You remember, and still you choose peace. Healing doesn't happen in lightning. It happens in small, ordinary acts of self-parenting. Waking up and asking, how do I feel, instead of, what do I need to do? Feeding yourself before the world. Letting yourself rest without permission. Reparenting is the art of consistency, of showing up for yourself in ways your parents couldn't. It's talking gently to the parts of you that still flinch at rest, that still panic when you make a mistake. It's saying, you're safe. I've got you now. You learn to regulate your own storms, not by suppressing them, but by staying through them. You learn to hold space for your emotions without judgment, to become both the child and the caretaker, the one who feels and the one who soothes. This isn't about becoming perfect. It's about becoming present. Every moment you choose awareness over avoidance, you rewrite your nervous system's story. You teach your body that love doesn't have to feel like labor. You learn that safety isn't earned, it's remembered. So when your inner child asks, who will take care of me now? You answer softly, I will. And that is where healing truly begins, not in grand gestures, but in quiet reliability, the kind you once gave everyone else. Trust is the first thing parentification steals. When your feelings were dismissed or overruled, you learned to doubt your own perception. You second-guessed your needs, your instincts, your truth. And now as an adult, you still hesitate before every choice. You were trained to read others before reading yourself. Your intuition became background noise to the louder needs around you. So now even safety feels suspicious. You wait for the hidden cost, the emotional bill that always came after peace. But this time, it doesn't have to. Trust begins with micro decisions. Choosing what you want for dinner. Saying no when your body tightens. Leaving a room that drains you. These small acts tell your nervous system, I believe me. Self-trust isn't built in comfort, it's built in follow-through. Every time you act on your truth, the child inside you relaxes a little. They begin to see that your words match your actions, that this new adult doesn't abandon, that safety, finally, is internal. You don't rebuild trust overnight. You earn it daily. Not by being flawless, but by being faithful to your own needs. The voice you learn to silence is still whispering. And every time you listen, you repair what neglect once broke. That's not selfishness. That's self-loyalty.
You were the emotional glue that kept things together. Even now, you walk into rooms scanning for tension, ready to fix it. It's instinct, a reflex born from years of invisible labor. But that weight was never yours. It belonged to the adults who handed you their storms. You spent so long believing that holding everyone made you strong. But strength isn't the same as overextension. You don't have to keep proving you're capable of surviving emptiness. You're allowed to put the world down for a while. You're allowed to let things fall without rushing to rebuild. The hardest part of healing is realizing there's nothing left to prove. You've already done enough. You've already been enough. Now the work is learning to exist without the constant urgency to help, to stand still in the middle of peace and not call it guilt. When you put down what was never yours, you discover what actually belongs to you: rest, joy, lightness. The air feels unfamiliar at first because freedom feels foreign when you've lived in service. But you'll adapt, slowly, tenderly. So take one breath, then another. No one will fall apart if you stop holding them. If they do, it's not your responsibility to catch them. You're not abandoning anyone by resting. You're finally returning to yourself. You used to think love meant staying no matter how heavy it became. That love was endurance, self-sacrifice, patience beyond reason. But that version of love was built on survival, not truth. Love is not depletion, it's reciprocity. It's two whole hearts, not one half saving another. You don't need to earn love by being useful. You don't need to disappear to be chosen. Real love doesn't demand exhaustion. It doesn't ask you to shrink or to parent. It meets you where you are and stays gentle there. Healthy love feels quieter than what you knew. It doesn't spike your adrenaline or test your worth. It's steady, almost boring, and that's why it feels unsafe at first. Because peace isn't the story your body remembers, but peace is where you learn to love without fear. Love that doesn't drain you will confuse you. You'll look for chaos, for the edge, for the ache. But the absence of pain isn't absence of passion. It's presence of safety. And the more you let safety in, the more love will start to feel like rest. That's how you know you're healing. You are worthy of the kind of love you once tried to give away. The love that sees, not uses, that listens, not leans, that holds without needing to be held up. Love can be easy, not because you're naive, but because you're home. There will be a quiet moment, no music, no epiphany, just silence, when you realize you no longer need to be the strong one, when your body relaxes before your mind catches up. That's the moment you become the adult you were always meant to be. You don't rescue anymore, you relate. You don't over-explain, you trust. You don't confuse calm with emptiness. You call it safety. And the world feels slower, softer, truer, because you finally belong to yourself. Healing doesn't mean rewriting the past. It means giving that little version of you the ending they deserved. You tell them you did enough. You let them play again, laugh again, rest again, and they believe you, because now you keep your promises. You will always carry traces of that old role, the caretaker, the listener, the strong one. But now it's guided by choice, not compulsion. You help because you want to, not because you must. That's what freedom feels like, gentle responsibility. And when someone asks, when did you realize you became the adult too soon? You'll smile, not with bitterness, but with peace. Because now you know the truth. You were never meant to be her best friend. You were meant to be her child. And finally, you get to be both loved and free.